Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our Power Platform series. I know it's been a while here, been away for a very long time, but hopefully I'm back now. A lot has changed in Power Platform in the last few months that I've been away, starting from the screen you're seeing here. So today we are going to continue from where we stopped. My last video was on the building the leave request application. So we have the part 1 and part 2 of the series. If you haven't seen that, please go check it out. So this is going to be the part 3 and we're going to continue. I've seen a lot of comments of people requesting for the third part of the series, so here you have it. So just a quick recap on what we have so far. We've been able to build this app to look this way, where we can create a new request, a leave request application, fill in the title of your request. The name of the requester is automatically populated. You have the departments that you can select from. You have the leave type. You have the start date, end date. You can search for your manager, and then you have your attachments. You can attach and the number of leave days, which is automatically populated. So we also have the request history screen. I think we haven't put a function to make it navigate to the screen, but we can see that here, where you can see the list of requests that you have made in the past. Yes, we are going to do a lot of redesign of these screens as well as we go on, but our focus for today will be to so we are able to submit now. We are at the point where you are able to create a new request and submit, right? So what we want to do next is your manager, who you are submitting to, should be able to approve this request. So what we are going to do now is to go to, first of all, we'll go to our Power Automate. So I have Power Automate open here. So we'll create a new flow, go to the automated cloud flow, and then we'll select this particular trigger called when an item is created or modified. So select this and say create. So if we still remember, we have our SharePoint list here. So leave requests, and these are the different columns that we have present at the moment. As time goes on, we might have to include additional columns as needed. So for now, we'll go back to our Power Automate flow. I'll just turn off this new designer for now. And so what we want to do is to update the trigger. Select the SharePoint list, the SharePoint site where we have our SharePoint lists, and then we'll select the SharePoint list as well. Okay, so here we have this. So this is loading. Okay, so we have the development site and the name of our SharePoint list, which is leave requests. So select leave requests. So what this tells us is when there is an item, so each record is called an item in SharePoint. So when there is an item created or modified, this particular Power Automate flow should trigger. So what happens after these triggers, right? The new step we'll add there is to, so I typically just add a switch control. So switch is more like when the value is equal to this, do this, when it's equal to this, do that. So we can include multiple cases. So what we are going to work with here is going to be the status column. So we'll just say we search for the status column here in the dynamic content. Note that we have status and status value. Please ensure you select the status value. This is going to be the actual value of the column. The status, you're going to have a bit of additional gibberish on this because the status is an object column and has some additional attributes. We'll probably explain that much later, but because it's a choice field, ensure you select the status value. So when we select the status value, now going back to our status column, by default we had set that the default should be pending manager approval. So our use case here is whenever a user submits, it should automatically go to the manager. So we'll select the pending manager approval here and copy this. So why I'm copying it is to ensure that I'm copying the exact value, because if there is any mistake, this is case sensitive and all of that. If there is a little space or I put a different case, then it will probably not come to this specific case. So I'm usually very careful to just copy and paste that. So which means when it's pending approval, I can put the set of actions I want it to perform here. I would also go to when it's manager approved. I can put that here as well. And when it's manager rejected, I'll copy this as well and add an additional case and put that here. So yes, now we have that. So when it's pending manager approval, what do I want it to do? So first of all, I want this to send an email to my manager. So what do? I just so there is something called the approval flow approval. So I'll just search for that. So this is the approvals action. What I'm going to do is to select a start and wait for an approval. So I'll select this, start and wait for approval. So this will send an approval email to my manager. So I'll just select so we can see that we have different actions here as well. Approve, everyone must approve, which means if I'm trying to send to multiple people at once to approve, I could send to multiple people and each of them must approve before it proceeds to the next action. In this case, I'll just select approve first to respond, because even if I send to multiple people, once first person responds, then it moves to the next stage. And since this is just a single approval, we can select this. The custom responses are just for if I don't, by default this will show approve and reject. So if I want to have some other responses like approve, reject, return and the rest, I can also use this and just put my custom responses. So in this case I'll go by the first to respond option. So now that we've selected this, we have the different options. We have title, we have assigned to, details, item link and the rest. So the title is more or less the what the subject of the mail is going to look like, right? So we can say leave request approval for, and then we can also pick from the dynamic content here. So we can put the requester's display name, for example. So and assign to, so for the assign to, because we are assigning it to whichever manager was selected, then it should go to the manager email. So because the manager is also a person field and it has different attributes like the claims display name, but when you are sending an email, obviously you are going to send to the email attribute of that person. So we are selecting the manager email. Then we have the details. So this details is going to be the body of the email, right? So we can say hi, and we can even make it dynamic by showing the addressing it to whoever we are sending it to. So which is I manager display name. So it sends to that person with their email address. You have a leave request pending your approval with the below details, and then we can put the details like requester, and then dates and number of days. So basically we are putting in the details of whatever the person has filled in here. So we want to display all of those information in the email. So once that the manager sees it, he can decide to either approve or reject that. So we come back here, we have the department, we have the what else do we have here? We have the leaf type as well. We have the leaf type. So now that we have put all of this, we can then start putting in all of the dynamic content. So we have the requester. So requester is the requester display name, and then the start date. So the date will be let's say the start date hyphen the end date, more like the start date to the end date, and then end date, number of days, number of leave days, department. So you can search for the department. So department is also going to be the department value because it's a choice field, and the leaf type as well is going to be the same. So you can say leaf type value. Right, so let's say this is our, can give it a title, leave request approval flow, or whatever I want to call it. So we have this. So once this is sent across, what should happen next? Okay, so we can maybe just say kindly approve or reject. Thank you. So we'll see what this looks like when we do a test. So after this happens, now the manager gets an email with the option to approve or reject. Once that is done, you can decide to approve or reject, and then if he approves, what should happen? If he rejects, what should happen? So that's where the next action comes in. So we select the condition just to say when he approves, this is what should happen. When he rejects, this is what should happen. So what we are going to check here is the outcome of the approval. So the outcome is, did he approve or reject? So then we can type approve. So if it's approved, the outcome will be approved. So once it's approved, then what we want to do next is we want to update the row, that particular record. So currently by default, whenever you submit, the status will be pending line manager, as you can see here. So the default value for the column is pending manager approval rather. So we want to update that status to from pending manager approval to what's it called now, manager approved, when the manager approves. And if manager rejects, then we update it to manager rejected. So same thing, we are selecting the same thing we did for the trigger. We're selecting the site, the SharePoint site. You could have several SharePoint sites listed there, so select the one that applies, and then on the list name, select the list as well. And then for the ID, this is going to be a dynamic content, which is the ID coming from our trigger here. So because we are updating the same item that was created or modified, now we click on ID, and yeah, for the title, because it's a required field, it might prompt us to put in a value. So we can make that optional actually from the list settings, but I'll just put it in for now. And then for the status, we are updating it from pending line manager approval to manager approved. So which means this manager has approved, the status has been updated. Now that that is done, we copy this as well, copy to clipboard, because it's basically the same action that we are going to perform here. Let's go to my clipboard, paste this, and then the only difference in the two actions happening here is that rather than updating this to manager approved, then this will be updated to manager rejected. Okay, so it's not allowing me paste this inside a switch statement. So what I do in that case is I go outside of the switch case and then paste whatever action it is, and then I can drag that back into wherever I want it to be. So I'll just drag that in here. Okay, so problem solved. Yeah, so from manager approved, we can update this to manager rejected. So what this is telling us is when the manager approves, updates this record to manager approved. When the manager rejects, update the status to manager rejected, right? So that is that. And while the manager is also approving, there is an option to also update the comments. So we'll see what that looks like as well while we are doing our test. So to also handle the comments, right here we have an option, a field for the manager comments. While we are doing that, let's just save our flow so we don't lose the changes we have made. So we may want to also capture whatever comments that the manager made, and then maybe we want to also capture the time the manager took the action, either he approved or rejected. So here we could go here to create an additional column and just say date and time, and we can say manager action time and say include time. Let's save that. Okay, so we have that column here now, manager action time. So to capture that as well, because we just saved created that column, let's just go back and re-edit our flow so those new fields would show up on our flow. Okay, now that we have this, so we can go back to our condition again. So we have an option to update the comment, and now we can see our manager action time field also showing up here. So we can put in the completion dates, I believe, here. So this will capture the time the action was taken from the start and wait for approval. So either the manager approved or rejected, it captures the time, and we can put that here as well. Now for the comments, we can also search for these comments. So responses comments. So this automatically puts our action inside and apply to each. So the reason is because the responses is an array of responses. As you see, as I was explaining earlier, you could actually assign this approval to multiple people, even though in our case it's just a single person, but you can actually assign this to multiple people, and in that case you could have multiple responses. So what it does is it saves the list of responses from each of the approvals. So automatically this field is an array, and then it automatically puts it in and apply to each. There are other ways to go around this. If you need to if you don't want it to go inside and apply to each, you could maybe create a variable or a compose action and just pick the first responses. But hopefully I'll teach something around that in some other classes, but for now let's just stick to this simple way so I don't get things complicated. So for now, let's select our responses comment here as well, so you can see it also automatically puts it in an apply to each. But not to worry, since we have just one approval, this is just going to run once, so we should be fine at this point. Now that we have this, so what we are saying is when this is approved, go to approve. If this yes, update it. If it's no, update it to rejected. Now the case 2 is when it's approved. So when it's approved, what should happen? In this case, what we just want to do is whenever it's approved, we want to send an email. So we'll select our Office 365 Outlook connector. We have the send an email. Who are we sending an email to in this case? So we want to send an email to the requester. So we'll just select the requester email from the dynamic content here. What should be the subject? Your leave request approved. So we can say hi, and then we put the requester display name, so we can address the requester by their name on the email dynamically. And we say your leave request for, so let's just put the start date and end date. Or we could also put like the title of the leave request here in the dynamic content, and say title, and put an hyphen there. So your leave request for you might actually repeat the title here as well, or if you want to put, say, start date to end date, end date has been approved by your manager. Say thank you. So whenever it's approved, this is what the mail that goes to the requester would look like. And we can have a case 3 as well, which is when the request is rejected. So like I said, when you're trying to paste in inside a switch statement, usually gives an error most of the times. So just paste this outside of the switch case and then drag this in here. So yeah, now what we want to do whenever the request is rejected is to say, instead of approved, we can say rejected. Your leave request has been, and just change this as well to rejected, right, by your manager. So let's keep it as simple as this, and then let's save our flow. So while that is saving, we could just go back to our app. So I think that's saved. So we can go to our app now and say new requests. So new requests, and let's say leave my annual leave for Jan 2025, and then I select my department, I select the leave type, I select the start date. So say I'm starting on the 13th to the 17th, and then I'll just select myself as the manager in this case, so we can just run a quick test. And of course, we might also take this some other time. There are other validations we can include here on the start date should not be more than the end date, the number of leave days as well. We can also write a formula to make it calculate only the work days, so it doesn't include weekends, and maybe exclude weekends and even public holidays, right? We can also do something around that, but I'll leave that for another class. In the meantime, we'll just submit this. So once this is submitted, we'll check our SharePoint list to be sure this was successfully submitted, which I believe it should. So I'll just say okay. So this brings me back here. I know this gallery and design looks very horrible at the moment, but that's one of the things we'll take in our next classes to redesign this and make it look much better. In the meantime, let's check our SharePoint list and see if this has been submitted or added to our list. While that is opening as well, so I should be receiving an email. So I'll just open my Outlook as well to see if the email or when the email drops. Okay, so this is what our SharePoint list looks like at the moment. We can see that this is the one we just submitted with all of the different details that we filled in from the app, and then this is the status currently, which is by default pending manager approval. So going back to our Outlook, okay, so here is what the email looks like. So as we can see, starting from the subject, we have leave request approval for SharePoint admin, which is something similar to what we had on our while we're creating our flow. So this is the name of the person, and then the body of the email as well. We have the hi SharePoint admin, which is still me. So if this is being sent to my line manager, this is, so I'm only getting this because I'm sending it to myself. If it's a different person, it addresses whoever this is sending to as well. And then you have a little request pending, blah blah blah, and we have the requester, the name of the requester, we have the dates from this date to this date, we have the number of days, we have the department of the person, the type of leave, and it says kindly approve or reject. So we have this option to either approve or reject, and we have the comments. So I can decide to approve this and say good to go, and then submit. So once that is approved, based on what we have configured the Power Automate flow to do, it should proceed to update the status of that leave request, and then after that the flow should trigger again and send an email to the requester about the approval, a notification about the approval of their email, so of their request rather. So if I come back here now, I can refresh my SharePoint list just to see if the status has been updated. So let's see if that has happened. Yeah, so here is what we have, and we can see that the status has been updated to manager approved now. If we go back here, we can as well see our flow and see that it was successfully triggered, and we will see the details of everything that happened in between, so we can also visualize each of the action that happened. So when an item was created or modified, it triggered, and if we come to the switch statements, we have the case, start and wait for approval, and we can see that this action and the different details of what was sent to the line manager. Coming back to the condition as well, we have this apply to each, and then we have the updates which updated the status and the comments as well. So if you come back here, we'd also see the different other things that were updated, so which is the manager comments as well as the time that this was actioned. So the next email I'm hoping to receive now is the email that the request has been approved. So let's see. So coming back to our Outlook and checking the email, so the mail has dropped. So we can see that this is the email that goes to the requester to say, hi, so your leave request for this to this has been approved by your line manager. We can as well format the dates, like date, month, year, or whatever format. I can take that also in one of the subsequent classes. So yeah, at this point we have been able to create a request. We are able to it goes to the line manager to approve or reject, and they're able to do that. So if we also try this with the reject as well, if I reject, the approval status will change to manager rejected, as well as the user getting a rejection email. So that's what's going to happen. But for the sake of time, I won't just be testing that, but you can try that on your own and see that works. So I think this will bring us to the end of the class for today. I hope you've been able to learn one or two things. So we are going to still have another part to this video where we'll talk about how you can. So this is currently approving from your email. You might also have scenarios where you want the approval to be within the app, so we can also actually do that as well. We're also going to be doing a bit of redesign of the app itself and make it look much better and add a bit more functionality into the app, so watch out for that. So thank you for staying with me thus far for today. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and let me know your thoughts on this. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.